8-month celebration. Today's guest has been on Broadway a total of 8 times, as well as countless TV, regional, off-Broadway. He's done it all, but he hasn't done Kiki's Closet, so let's go.
Come on and come and play in Kiki's Closet today.
Please help me welcome one of my dear friends of almost 8 years, Broadway's Lance Roberts!
Hello! I hear the applause.
It's so good to see you. I've got to tell you, my mom is probably the most excited for this episode. I told her I'm talking with you, and this is going to be great today.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. You're all grown up. When I met you, you were like a little tadpole waiting outside the ghost stage door.
She is, yeah.
Were you even 20? Oh, are we talking
No.
your age? Can I say your age
No,
out loud?
yeah, I wasn't even 20. I think it was like 19 maybe.
That's amazing.
Your career is so exciting, but we've got to start at the top. You grew up here in Harlem, right where I am right now. Can you tell me about your first experience with the magic of theater?
I didn't know about theater. I mean, because when I grew up in the 60s, and I didn't know Black people performed in the theater. The African American theater was next door to me, but it was like this garage, and people wore like long gauze skirts and spoke in poetry, and there were drums, and I didn't know what that was, but I didn't know that was the theater. I just thought it was just some sort of like thing that people got together and did, because there weren't real stories. They were very obscure, probably like brilliant right now. We watch it now, we go, oh my goodness, it's like Amanda Gorman. I was blessed. In New York City, they test us, and I scored well on the test. I don't know how, because I wasn't the best student. I was offered a scholarship to go to a boarding school. So it was at boarding school up in Massachusetts, Masconomet Regional High, where I discovered the theater. I mean, again, I knew about the theater. I knew my mother went to see Hello, Dolly with Pearl Bailey, but I thought Pearl Bailey just stood on the stage and sang the song Hello, Dolly. I didn't know she told the story. The first time I saw African Americans on the stage was probably around 1974, 75, and I saw Bubbling Brown Sugar. And Rosetta Lenoir, who they give the award for diversity and equity now, well, her life story was told in the musical Bubbling Brown Sugar, but it was a musical review. It didn't really have a story. So when I went to see it, I saw the great Vivian Reed, which I'm still a huge fan. I've gotten to work with her now a couple of times. I'm still enamored with her. Well, I saw her again. They were just singing. So I knew Black people sang because we went to the Apollo practically every week on 125th Street. So I go to boarding school and I saw Mame, the musical. And I had seen Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway, but again, I love the show, but I thought those people did musicals on Broadway. I didn't know I could be in that story. You know, there's no place for me in Fiddler on the Roof, although it is one of my all-time favorite musicals, because that's what my mother took me to for my 6th grade graduation. So I see Mame, and I'm sitting in the audience, and I'm loving the show. Again, I didn't know I could be in it, but I came to it from being in the choir at school, and everyone was saying, oh, are you going to audition for the spring musical, which was going to be Oklahoma? And I'm like, well, how can I be in Oklahoma? I had seen the movie. It's a lot of Caucasian people.
A lot of white people.
Yeah. But I auditioned. They gave me the part of Ike Skidmore. And I'll never forget when someone told me about my smile on stage and how they like looked forward to every time, because our Will Parker could not dance. And I got to Kansas City, he's supposed to do this like little dance. And in the original libretto, they said, Will, where'd you learn that dance? And he's supposed to say, well, I learned it from a couple of colored fellas in Kansas City. Well, we cut that line out, but it's implied, because guess who did the dance? Moi! P.S. Donna Murphy was our Lori.
Because we went to high school with Donna Murphy.
We went to high school. That's like my bestie. And she was our Lori. And so we got to do the Dream Ballet together. That was fun. That's another story. But so anyway, so I got to dance and I'm smiling and people were talking about my smile and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Theater was this thing for other people, but now I was included. And that's sort of like the greatest thing that I've learned about the theater and the theatrical community, whether it's on Broadway or the greater theater community, which encompasses regional theater and community theater and high school theater, all theater. It's like we become part of this tribe. We're included. And that's what I felt. I was included. So therefore, I never, ever wanted to leave. And that's how I ended up. That was my original inspiration, being invited into the club.
And you were hooked.
Hooked, you were hooked. Absolutely. Yeah. And then for me as, a person with this mocha chocolate skin, The Wiz was the show, y'all. I mean, I would go and second act that show. It started at the Majestic Theater, and then it moved up to the Broadway Theater. And because I had seen it, I had my playbill. So I would second act that show as often as I could. And I'll just tell a little side story. When it was at the Broadway Theater, shows didn't have to sell out those days. Now, a show has to do like 80% in order to stay open. Well, The Wiz, I mean, maybe the orchestra was filled, but not upstairs. So I would always go upstairs in the mezzanine, which is audience right, but stage left. And I remember exactly where I used to sit because there was never anybody over there. And I would go right in with my playbill and act like, I was just hanging out outside during the intermission, and I walk right in. Well, I'd go up and I'd sit in the seat and I'd watch the show. Well, 40 years later, I made not my Broadway debut, but my debut in a musical in that very same theater. Yep, Sister Act. That's it.
I've got him ready because here, let me say, Lance has been on Broadway 8 times. I've seen him in 7 of those 8 Broadway shows. Pee Wee Herman was his Broadway debut, but I hadn't moved to the city yet, so I didn't get to see him in that. But I've seen everything else. And
whoa,
I've got them all. I pulled them all out for you. I mean, such an exciting career. But I was going to ask you while you were bringing up The Wiz, did you ever look up in that section when you were on stage in Sister Act?
No, that's exactly what I was going to tell you. So the first night I went on, because I was a swing for Sister Act, the first night I went on, I remember we were in the reprise of Fabulous Baby. We're like, da-da-da-da-da. And I just happened to look up in the mezzanine. It's so funny. Whenever I think about this, I get so emotional. Woo. Anyway, but it's like, not only are you like on Broadway, this is like still the coolest thing ever. It's like I've been on I performed hundreds, thousands of times now. It doesn't really matter. It's still like the most amazing feeling ever because you're part of history and people are so excited when they come see these shows, and it's like you can feel the energy as a performer in most theater, but Broadway, you're going down in the history books. Even that night's performance will be in the history books. They'll say, if you close that night, they'll say you close that night. You can read that somewhere. There I was, and I happened to look up in the mezzanine, and I looked back at my teenage self sitting up there at the Broadway Theater watching The Wiz, and I was like, because I never thought I'd be on the stage. That wasn't like my goal, because I didn't know that was a possibility. But I mean, how'd you get me all like teary up already? It's ridiculous. But it takes you back because it is such a huge moment. So that was like the one cool thing about the Wiz and my connection with it.
So that's what is so awesome about you and your career, is that you really have done it all. You've done contemporary musical theater, you've done classic, revivals, classic plays, and then, new plays. What is your best advice for staying well-rounded in this business?
Staying open to the possibilities. I always say my grandfather told me this, but I don't know where I learned it, but you are not what people call you, you're what you answer to. So you have to decide who you are, what gifts you are. And my gift, I know, is I just love telling stories. So it doesn't matter the story. It doesn't matter whether I'm a Cockney guy in My Fair Lady, an old ghost in Ghost, you know, or the King of Cartoons and Pee Wee Herman. It's like whatever the world, it's like, yeah, I want to be a part of that world, you know, to be a part of the story. And that's why even in rehearsal, I'm always trying to listen to what is the story. That's the question. That's like my quest. What is the story, so that I know what I'm being a part of, and so I can enjoy it, and so the audience can enjoy it. I think it helps to be well-rounded if you are just open and ready to just tell a story, whatever kind of story, whether it's the Grimm fairy tales or Three Blind Mice. Just love telling the story. Sort of simple.
Yeah, yes, but often the best advice is the most simple. You know, you've had so much experience in this business on TV, off-Broadway, like truly everything. And theme parks, you did Aladdin, which is where I probably saw you perform for the very first time. You did Aladdin the Musical Spectacular at Disneyland, and you did that for how many years as Jafar?
7.5.
7.5 years. Yeah, I'm sure I saw you because that was my favorite show to go see with my family when we would go on vacation. But you've really done it all. I'm wondering, over the last year, where a lot of our business has been shut down and we've gone through the Black Lives Matter movement and a global pandemic, last question I have for you, what has the last year taught you about yourself?
That I have a lot of ideas in my head, a lot of dreams, which I think a lot of performers, we're dreamers. What this last year taught me was that I am able to myself take my dream and turn it into a reality. And that was making the show Broadway's Calling, that a streaming show similar to yours, where I asked my Broadway friends, where were they when they got the call to be on Broadway the very first time? Because it only happens once, but every last person who's been on Broadway has had the experience. And you know, I'd been talking about it and saying, oh, it's going to be a coffee table book. Oh, it's going to be this and that. But then last year, it's like I'm sitting in the house and I'm like, wait a minute, you have all of these ideas. Do something with it. So why don't you take, and I looked at all my ideas because I do write them down. And I do recommend that everyone, all you dreamers out there, you must write them down. Because you may not do it right now, but there's going to be a moment where you're going to go, oh, let me check. So I call it the hot file. And I go to the hot file and I just went down and I was like, Broadway's Calling. Wait a minute. And why do I make that like a television show where I actually talk to the people virtually? We don't have to be in the same place. I mean, I hope that we do it in the same place, because the dream is I have an idea, but I'm not going to divulge it yet, but there is an idea for when we can actually be together of how to tell that story of when they first got the call. But that's what I learned. I learned that I am able to take my dream and turn it into reality. And I think we all can do that. It's like we constantly are waiting for other people to say yes to us. And last year, there was nobody to say yes to us. they weren't saying yes. So we had to say yes to ourselves.
And you did it.
Yeah. You did the same thing. You know, you had an idea and you just made it tangible. It's now a thing. Kiki's Closet is a thing.
I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for your friendship. I'm so grateful that you have a wonderful
Same
show that
here.
Yeah, this is so great. I'm so happy that we were able to talk, and I can't wait to see you back on Broadway very soon.
Me neither. And I can't wait until you're choreographing and directing, because I don't know if people know, but I still say that Legally Blonde that you staged in the round was still one of the best pieces of theater that I've seen. I always think about it. I love that staging. I love the piece there. And you didn't have all the, fancy Broadway lights and sets and, magnets that change the dress and everything. But it was magical. It truly was magical. I think we were in like a gymnasium or a dining hall or something. I loved it. So I look forward to what you're going to be doing on Broadway soon.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, and I hope to see you real soon, okay?
Thank you.
Bye,
you.
Lance.
See you soon. All right, later.
Come on and come and play in Kiki's Closet today.